Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be working on my 2006 Pontiac GTO. I will be installing a Mishimoto 4-core aluminum radiator to replace my factory one. At almost 100,000 miles, the GTO has a problem with leaky radiators, and I walked out the other day to find a puddle underneath the front of my car that happened to be antifreeze, and I knew it was about that time. Because I will be changing from the orange antifreeze that comes in the vehicle factory to a green antifreeze, I've decided to lift the vehicle up so I can put a tub underneath to catch all the old antifreeze, and I'm going to show you how to do a complete flush first with distilled water. So let's get started. At first, you're going to want to find the proper jack points for your vehicle. I happen to have lateral bars running along the bottom of my vehicle, so I have plenty of points to jack up on, but I will leave a link in the description so you know exactly where yours are if you have a 2004 to 2006 Pontiac GTO. So what we're going to want to do is go inside and pop your hood, come around to the front, locate your latch, which should be right to the right of your arrowhead, right about here. Lift up and expose your engine. The next thing you're going to want to do is remove these body panel clips. And this is where your radiator hides under. So once those are removed, reach down here towards the center, towards the motor, and pop up, and it should pull right off. And there's your radiator. Once your radiator cover is removed, you can kind of assess the damage on your radiator. Mine happened to be leaking from right down here, and I couldn't actually find the crack, but it was a very constant, steady drip. So when we remove it, we will look into that further. But for now, like I said, I want to drain the old orange antifreeze out, and I'm going to install new Prestone green antifreeze. So get under your vehicle and locate on your radiator what is called the pit cock. The pit cock is a little plastic wing nut, and it should be down here somewhere. On the 05 to 06 GTOs, the pit cock is located right above your radius rod bushing on your front. So if you come right up here, your pit cock is a little black wing nut right there. So once you've located your pit cock and you have a draining bucket beneath your vehicle, you're going to want to reach up and turn counterclockwise to open it up. Now most vehicles, you can turn it all the way counterclockwise and it will not come all the way out. So we're going to keep turning until fluid comes out. It looks like the GTOs come all the way out. So we're gonna let this drain, and I'll be back in about 10 minutes. So this has been draining for about 15 minutes. As you can see, there's still a little bit of a steady stream, but I'm gonna go ahead and plug it up, and we're gonna go ahead and run the distilled water through. Once your pit cock is nice and tight, we're gonna wanna come up here. You're gonna wanna find your radiator cap, which is located right here. Push down a little bit and turn counterclockwise until it releases, and we're going to fill this up with water. So be sure to use distilled water. You can use a garden hose, but normally that type of water contains, hard minerals. It's not filtered and could potentially damage the inside of your motor. So it's always a better idea to go to the store and buy some gallons of distilled water. They usually run about $1. So grab as many gallons as you feel comfortable with. I've grabbed 5. So all we're gonna wanna do is fill the radiator back up with distilled water. We're gonna wanna start the car, turn the heat on full blast, and we're gonna let it run, get up to operating temperature, so about 10 or 15 minutes. And we're gonna let all that distilled water cycle through the block, and then we're gonna do the same process over again. So remove the pit cock, let it all drain, and we should be good to start installing our new radiator. While filling your radiator up with distilled water, it's a good idea to go over here and grab your upper radiator hose and just give it some squeezes. As you can hear, all that's doing is helping the bubbles escape so you can get more distilled water in here. Just some light squeezes anywhere you want on that upper radiator hose. And all that, again, is doing is letting that water go down further so you can get more water in to clean that system out. Fill it to the top. And I'm not worried about spilling this because, again, it is just water. But as you can see, some bubbles. Go over here. And again, we're just trying to make sure that the radiator holds as much water as possible to try to clean out this entire system before we put in our green antifreeze. As you can see, this is full now. It ended up taking a little bit over a gallon. So we're gonna go in and actually first we're gonna put this cap back on. Very important. But we're gonna put the cap back on, make sure it's on there. We're gonna start the vehicle, let it get up to operating temperature, around 10 or 15 minutes at idle. And then we're gonna turn the heat on full blast, let get everything circulated through the engine block. Then we're gonna repeat the same process by pulling out that pitcock and letting everything drain. So I'll be back. All right, it's been about 10 minutes. The car is at operating temperature. And I was trying to get a good video of that leak. As you can see, there is water down here on the front of the fins. You can see it way down there dripping. But that is the problem, and that's what we're here to replace. So I'll go inside. Appear to be at operating temperature. So you're going to want to turn the car on heat. I don't think it matters where you place it. I'm going to leave it on defrost, and then we're going to turn it all the way up. And all that does is open up your heater core, allows all your coolant to run through that as well, and give it about another 5 minutes doing this, and then we'll go ahead and drain everything. All right, the car's been running for about 5 minutes with the heat on full blast. As you can see, you still have that leak down there. I didn't think it was going to go away, but it is leaking pretty good. So at this point, I am satisfied that the coolant has, or the water, has been all the way through the block, the heater core, everything. I believe it's cycled well enough. We're now going to turn the vehicle off. Go in here. I always think it's a good idea to turn your blower motors off before you shut off your vehicle. This is just a side note, but a lot of the times, if your blower motor is left on and you go to turn on your vehicle the next day, you have kind of a surge in power, and that surge in power typically is not good on any sort of blower motor for an extended period of time. You can do it every once in a while, it's cool, but consistently doing that, I feel shortens the life of the blower motor, but your discretion, you do what you want. But we're gonna turn the vehicle off now. And a very, very, very important note is that this is going to be extremely hot. It is a pressurized system, so if you go ahead and remove this radiator cap now, it'll just blow hot coolant water mixture all over you. It's not fun. Same with the pitcock. You're gonna wanna let this cool down for just a minute. 5 or 10 minutes, you know, everything's been circulated. It's okay to just let it cool down for a little bit. So go ahead, get inside, relax for a minute, and we'll be back. All right, it's been about another 10 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and check. Normally you can put your hand on this, feel if it's hot. I don't think it is, so we're gonna push down and rotate ever so slightly as a just in case. So I don't know if you were able to hear that, but it was still pressurized. I don't wanna let this go all the way, but it is seeping out. There was still some pressure in there, so I'm glad I opened this slowly. Again, if that was hot, would have been a bad deal. So we're gonna go ahead and, while holding down, we're gonna turn ever so slightly just to get that pressure to release. And I think we're okay now. So, geez, turn a little more. All right, and we're good. And as you can tell, the fluid in there isn't just straight water. It has some orange tinge to it. So that tells me that it did go through the block, through the heater core, and all that good fun stuff. So hop back underneath the car here. Go ahead and, again, right above your radius rod bushing, you should feel your little plastic wing nut up here. And turn counterclockwise. Until fluid starts to come out. Oops. We're just going to go ahead and remove the petcock all the way. It is a little warm, but it's not terrible, so it is definitely bearable. It got a little warmer, so we're just gonna let it drain. But I'll be back when it's done. All right, it's been about 10 minutes. I am going to go ahead and try to run straight water past the radiator and just into the engine block. So what I'm gonna do is remove the thermostat, remove the lower radiator hose, and then I am going to just add water. I'm gonna tilt the upper radiator hose up, pour water straight through. It should run all the way through the block and then come back out the thermostat hole, and then I will just, or thermostat housing, and then it should just go right into the bucket, and I'll stop when it runs clear, and then we will start the install on the new Mishimoto radiator. Actually, before I do that, the vehicle won't be on again until after I've installed the radiator, so it's always a good idea, especially working on the GTOs, to any vehicle really, to go ahead and remove your negative battery terminal, because you don't want anything shorting out, anything like that. We're not messing with anything electrical, but it's always a good idea when working on your vehicle to remove this. So once you have this loose enough to pull off, I always like to use a rag or something. I didn't think this was going to be a two-handed job, but it might. Once this is loose enough, there we go. What I like to do is wrap it up in a rag, wrap up this connector, just in case it wants to ground out to anything while you're working. So wrap it up a good few times, make sure all the metal is wrapped up, none of it's exposed. You don't want it touching the body or back on the battery terminal. After that, you're gonna wanna come over here. That was a 10mm, by the way. Yours might be different, but typically it's 10mm. Next, you're gonna wanna remove this vacuum hose off of your intake. And I do have a K&N, but factory intakes will have this same hose. And then all you're gonna wanna do is take it off and twist up. Then you're gonna wanna locate your little clamps here. Typically these are 10mm as well, or a flathead screwdriver works just the same. But you're just gonna remove both sides, get them loose enough to where they start to spin a little bit, and then wiggle it all out of your way. Just like that. So now it's a lot easier to get access to that upper radiator hose. All right, so the radiator was done draining. I went ahead and tightened that petcock back down. So now we're gonna try to remove the lower radiator hose, and all that's still in the block, all that excess fluid is hopefully gonna go right into the bucket. So the lower radiator hose looks to be just a clamp that you can use any sort. Well, actually it's that same clamp right there, but just anything you can get a pair of pliers on. You're just going to want to push them together from either side, wiggle back a little bit, and you should be able to pull this lower radiator hose off. All right, after getting the lower radiator hose removed, we're going to move on to the upper radiator hose, and it does have that same sort of fastener on here. So all you got to do is get a pair of pliers, pull that fastener back, and wiggle it free. Okay, so now that the upper radiator hose is off, I have turned it. I had to move a few of these lines down here and just kind of bend the hose and shove it up through. But let's go ahead and remove the thermostat. So the thermostat only opens at typically a temperature of 185 degrees or whatever your factory thermostat is. I believe factory LS2 thermostats are 186, I want to say, but that means that it won't open up until it gets that hot. So in order for water to free flow through the block, we're gonna have to remove that and then put the housing back on, and we'll go from there. Okay, so once you have removed your thermostat housing attached to your lower radiator hose, you will notice your thermostat is inside, and all you have to do is wiggle it out just like that. So now we're gonna go ahead and reinstall the housing and leave the lower radiator hose on, and then I will feed water through the system, and it should pour out the bottom until it runs clear. All right, I got everything reinstalled, so I will pull the bucket over here and make sure it is beneath this lower radiator hose so nothing spills all over the ground, and let's see how this goes. All right, so again, this is very hard one-handed, but distilled water in this top radiator hose. I'm gonna try to get in here without spilling it everywhere. So we're gonna pour some in, and then if you watch down there, it's coming out. So I'm just gonna do this until it runs completely clear, and that way I know I have every bit of that old orange coolant out of there.